I woke up to a clamor downstairs. It was Sunday, and I had intended to sleep until late in the morning. But no, something had to happen. I stormed out of bed and went downstairs stomping. The sofa was moved from its position, and so was the TV. I saw pages from my collection of books ripped into pieces and strewn everywhere. Our house cat Ruby was hiding behind the sofa, scared and shaking as if she had seen a predator. Mindy, my 10-year-old daughter, was lying on the floor in the middle of the living room. At first, my heart sank. Did she fall from somewhere? Did she just get injured? But then I realized that she was just asleep as I knelt beside her. Mindy, what in the world is going on? I yelled. No response. Mindy, wake up. I shook her. She stretched her arms and glanced around. What happened, Daddy? She asked in a voice soft enough to melt my heart. But I was more than frustrated. I was livid. This was not the first such instance after all. Oh, really? Are we going to play this game again? I yelled more loudly than before. She sat up and turned her head in all directions. I did not mean to do it, Daddy, she said, still rubbing her eyes. Then why did you do it, Mindy? I continued to yell. The exasperation from my Sunday morning sleep being ruined was palpable. The smoke man made me do it, Daddy. The smoke man. I did not mean to do it, she said, tearing up. Jesus, that again? I don't know what to tell you anymore, Mindy. I threw my hands in the air. She whimpered, making her usual face that exuded innocence. I'm in no mood to argue with you. Go to your goddamn room while I clean up this mess. I reprimanded her, unable to contain my anger. She then got up and scurried away upstairs, but not before saying it again. Sorry, Daddy, I did not mean to do it. The smoke man made me do it. Last few months had not been easy on us. My wife and Mindy's mother, Grace, had passed away in March. It was an untimely death, to say the least. No one could track down what had actually happened, but all we knew was that she had fallen from the upstairs balcony while playing with Mindy. How could that have happened? I have no idea. Grace wasn't the one to be careless or clumsy. After her death, it was the first time Mindy had brought up the smoke man. A supernatural monster was behind her mother's death, if she were to be believed. Daddy, the smoke man pushed Mommy, she had said again and again, and thereafter almost everything bad was the smoke man's fault. Anyway, after Grace's demise, I had been juggling the real estate business and our home somehow. It was a mess. As if all of this was not enough, Mindy's mischiefs were becoming too frequent. Not just any mischiefs, but the kind that were purely disruptive and unacceptable. Moving furniture around the house, tearing the books apart, playing with the kitchen knives, throwing Ruby, our house cat, out of the window in her upstairs bedroom, and almost killing her. These were some of the examples of her shenanigans. I would have somehow made peace with it had it been the only problem. But no, when confronted, she always blamed it on the smoke man. It was her imaginary scapegoat. No matter how much I admonished her, she never budged or changed her story. I did not mean to do it, Daddy. The smoke man made me do it, she always said. The rest of the day after the morning's incident was normal. At night, I thought of talking it out with Mindy. After all, she was just a kid who had lost her mother recently. She had the right to act out in some way. Hey, sweetie, you finished your glass of milk? I asked, entering her bedroom. Yes, she said, immersed in her comics. Good girl, I replied, patting her back. I grazed my fingers in her hair, which made her giggle. You know, sweetie, I miss Mommy too, but we need to be strong. You are a strong girl, aren't you? Don't give Daddy too much trouble, I said, almost pleading. She nodded. Daddy, would you close that window? She asked all of a sudden, pointing at the window behind us. Sure, sweetie, but won't you feel stuffy in here? I countered. She looked into my eyes. They hinted apprehension. Daddy, if I keep that window open, the smoke man would come in and make me do bad things again, she replied after a moment of hesitation. Jesus, Mindy, I thought we just put that behind us. Come on, really? I responded, pausing along the way to swallow my irritation. She turned back to her comics. Look, we can move on if you stop giving me that stupid excuse, Mindy. You know good girls don't lie. I reasoned a little bit more. I'm not lying, Daddy. The smoke man makes me do all the bad things I do not mean to do, she replied, undeterred. Okay, enough of that. Just go to sleep now. It is late. I instructed, and she complied. I switched off the light and turned around to leave. As I was exiting the room, I heard the window shutting behind me. Mindy had got up to close it before tiptoeing back to her bed. I did not react. Honestly, I was too exhausted to argue. As I entered my own room, a rancid smell welcomed me. I had nobody else to blame it but myself. What was I expecting after leaving piles of dirty laundry and empty packets of chips? I walked to the other end of the room and opened the window. A cold breeze of air blew in and filled the room with the smell of my backyard. It felt soothing, so I left it open. I threw myself on the bed and let out a big sigh. I was tired, sleepy, and it did not take me long to fall asleep. Next morning, I woke up to a loud pounding noise. Someone was knocking at my front door mercilessly. What the fuck is going on? I thought, wiping the drool off my face. I still felt exhausted, as if the sleep of an entire night was not enough. I stretched my arms, still lying in the bed, as I turned to look at the clock. It was 9 in the morning. My eyes fell on the open window beside the clock. It suddenly reminded me of the nightmare. The nightmare I had had not too long ago after dozing off last night. For some reason, I had a clear recollection of what it was. I had dreamt of the smoke man, the very imaginary monster my daughter had described. It was all surreal. A dark figure made out of black smoke billowed outside of the window at first and then suddenly flew in, hovering around me above the ground. I was unable to move, paralyzed perhaps. I laid in the bed as that figure loomed over me. It had a face, the face of the vilest evil imaginable. The eyes on it were glistening red. They stared into my eyes without blinking. The last thing I remember was that I twitched violently as the smoky figure merged with my breath, got sucked inside my body. What a doozy of a dream, I thought as I sat up and yawned. Bang bang, I heard the loud knock again on my door. Some nutcase did not learn how to knock from their parents, I thought. Jesus, I'm coming, I yelled on top of my lungs. I got myself out of bed, fatigued and slightly disoriented. I did not just walk. I ran downstairs as it wouldn't have been possible to bear another knock on the door. Then, just as I opened the door, I saw 3 police officers pointing their firearms at me. I flinched in reaction, petrified and confused. On the ground right now, on the ground, one of them screamed. What is going on? I shouted as I put my hands in front of my face in defense and jumped back to get away from them. On the ground right now! Right the hell now! The officer screamed again, furious as if he was ready to pull the trigger any moment. In fear of my life, I followed his command and lied down on my belly. Arms behind your back, legs crossed, he continued to yell as I felt him charging at me. Within a second, he hunched forward and put my wrists inside his handcuff. I shrieked in agony as the teeth strand of the cuffs grazed my hands and drew blood. What did I do? What is going on? I bleated, squirming. The other officer gripped my neck and forced it down on the floor to ensure I was unable to move. I remained in their control, helpless and stunned. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you do or say can be used against you, the other officer began reciting mechanically. Mr. Dunbar, we are placing you under arrest for the charges of the murders of your neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. D'Souza, the other officer announced as he fiddled the handcuffs to ensure they were locked around my hands as tight as they could. What? What are you talking about? I did not do anything, I begged. My screams became cries for help as I could not fathom the turn of events. The first officer pulled my shirt, signaling me to stand up while still in his grip. We have a footage of you breaking in their house around midnight yesterday. You can be seen walking out of there with a chopper, rushing back to your house, he replied. What? How is that possible? I wailed. There it is, the weapon, the other officer roared as he pointed at the dining table. To my shock, there indeed was a knife, a chopper, stained in red. jabbed perpendicular into the center of the wooden platform of my dining table. I mumbled words in defense, most of which were incoherent. There was nothing I could think to justify that knife. I did recognize it to be from my kitchen, but all the other events were still a mystery to me. I swear, officer, I did not do anything. I did not. I continued screaming with the leftover energy. Sobbing and shaking, I hoped that somehow someone would believe me. Please believe me, officers, I did not do this. I did not. My words kept echoing. Just then, from the corner of my teary eyes, I saw Mindy standing outside of her bedroom and at the edge of the stairs, looking down at me with compassionate eyes. I know, Daddy, you did not mean to do it. The smoke man made you do it, she said and sobbed.